Alrighty, how's it going? Rangers and overall hockey fans, thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest episode of Rangers Review. Myself, Wardy, alongside Statboy Steven. This is episode 70 here on the Rangers Review YouTube channel, or of course, wherever you get your audio podcast. Of course, like always, we apologize. Life has definitely gotten in the way over the past month. We try to do this weekly, and has been the farthest thing from the truth since the season has begun. But hopefully, I truly mean this, hopefully, from now going forward, we can be as close to weekly as possible, because a lot has happened in Rangers land since last time we spoke. Again, last recording was around December 13th, and now today's January 19th. So we're going to go over the past 4 games to keep it relevant to the Rangers, what's happening right now, sharing our raw reactions and quick analysis to the past 4 games for the team, where the team currently stands as is in the standings, the stat lines, personal growth. How's the team looking with their line configurations? Our raw thoughts about that. The upcoming games, including a game starting tonight at the time of recording this. That's going to be a big one for sure. And getting into, the latest prospect updates, some little rumors that we've been hearing around, circling with, yes, Timo Meier. And more than anything, just hearing Statboy's raw experiences, because he's dealt with some really awesome ones of recent, not only attending Henrik Lundqvist's retirement night all the way in Sweden, but more recently being at the Rangers' last game and win against the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus. So we have a lot to get into. I'm very excited as always. But more than anything, Steven, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good. I'm in Florida now, so that's why I'm recording outside. It's nice. It's warm. It's definitely nice to recover a little bit from the cold in Columbus.
Yeah, you've been on this nice trip going. So you went to Columbus. We'll get into that shortly on the game breakdowns when we get into the past 4. Now you're in Florida enjoying yourself. And then where are you going after Florida, Steven?
Monday we fly to Seattle for a week. Going to see a Kraken game, Thunderbirds game, and Everett Silvertips game. And then on Tuesday, fly back to New York for a day. And then Wednesday, I fly through to Dublin.
So speaking of Seattle, before we get into the games, I got to ask, because I know that you're a Seahawks fan. What was your reaction to, getting kicked out in the wild card? And did the team exceed your expectations at all? How are you feeling about the Seahawks? I know you probably would have liked to maybe see a game there while you were attending, but let me hear it.
But I'm just happy we made it to the playoffs in the first place. This team traded away their starting quarterback in Russell Wilson for a bunch of picks and prospects, including a 5th overall pick this upcoming draft, because the Broncos sucked this season. So the expectations weren't even to make the playoffs. So when we did, because the Lions beat the Packers in Sunday night on the final day, I was already happy. That already exceeded my expectations. So, yeah, looking forward to next season.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith definitely surprised us all this year. And for him to outperform Russell Wilson the way he did, granted, he wasn't the only quarterback to outperform Russell Wilson this year, but he looked damn good. I mean, to have the passing record his first year, full year of starting in Seattle at the age of 32 now, he's quite the story. So, yeah, happy for Seahawks.
First time making the playoffs for him, too.
Yeah. Exactly,
but that's because he played for the Jets. That's not his fault.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a long stint. He was then where he was with the Giants as a backup. Was he anywhere else during that time frame that I'm not aware of?
Who else did he play for? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, when you're a backup, you're a little bit of a journeyman naturally, right? So I'm not too sure. But yeah, Geno finally gained success. Good for him. But now let's get on the hockey topic, right? Because like I said, we haven't spoken in a while, but I think it'd be best if we just go over the past 4 games for the Rangers, share raw thoughts, and who's standing out. I think a nice highlight of today's show should be on K'Andre Miller, because he's had some great moments, some not so great moments, and then some great moments again of recent for the Rangers. And just want to give him kind of the credit that he deserves for just acting like the utmost veteran, even though that he is still a youngin in the game today. But let's go to the first game, game 42 out of games 42 through 45. Briefly, that was against the Minnesota Wild. I mean, everyone and their mother, if they were a betting man in that game, you knew to bet on Matt Zuccarello scoring at least 1 goal, because that would hold true as it always does. I can't even believe that Zook hasn't been a Ranger for like 4 or 5 years now. That's insane to me. I still have his life-size poster on my wall beside me right now. I'm not even joking. I will always love Zuccarello, and I'm happy that he's having success in Minnesota. But every time he faces this Ranger team, he's a lock to get at least 1 point. But thankfully, the Rangers, after a slow start in this matchup, came up with a win in a shootout. But let's start with how we got there. John Merrill and Kirill Kaprizov scored 2 goals in the first period against the Rangers in the matchup against Igor Shesterkin. Then as we get to the second period, K'Andre Miller gets a beautiful breakaway with a lot of defenders tailing him, and he's still able to get the shot off for a really, really sick goal to make it a 2-1 game there in the second. That's his fourth of the year, assisted by Jimmy Vesey. And then Adam Fox on a really pretty 2-on-1 gets the snipe past Marc-Andre Fleury. Flower, that's his 8th of the year, unassisted. And it's a tied hockey game. Again, they always say, 2-goal lead is the worst lead in the AHL, and that holds true. I mean, how many times have we seen the Rangers struggle with 2-goal leads? And it's nice to see it the other way around here against this Minnesota team at home at the Garden. But we get to the third period. Matt Zuccarello gets a shot off from the right side, and it just trickles off the glove of Igor and bounces in. That wouldn't be the only kind of fluky goal that you would see in this one, but we'll get to that in a second. Then after Zook gets his 17th of the year, again, a point per game player because Zook's just always a beast. We will always love him. At least I know I will. Filipino then comes in late in this one, just gets it in after Adam Fox initially does a little wrap and gets it behind Marc-Andre Fleury to the left side to get it in. Doesn't go in, and then people are poking at it. Hedl pokes at it. He gets his 12th of the year, assisted by Fox and Miller to make it a tied hockey game later there in the third with around 67 minutes left. No one scores in overtime, but we get to a shootout, and Cabo Caco, speaking of fluky goals, he whiffs on his shot. And I don't think it was purposeful. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steven. And it's just Marc-Andre Fleury just didn't know how to handle it.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. It was a beautiful shootout.
It was beautiful. It was exactly what Kucherov always does, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It was totally on purpose.
After all the bad luck he's had this season, he was due for someone trickling in for a puck trickling in when it wasn't supposed to. So yeah. A fluke goal, but whatever. They all count.
And right after that, Matt Zuccarello scores in a shootout. Color me surprised, doing what he does best. No one would score for the next couple shots, but then the Rangers would get the winner with Artemi Panarin scoring the winner in that one. Frederick Gaudreau would be stopped by Igor. Igor finishes this game with a really, really solid outing overall, having himself 28 saves on 31 shots, 29 saves rather on 32 shots. Pardon me. And the Rangers would go on to win 4-3 there in the shootout. So, Steven, from there, the next Ranger game, what happens in that one?
Oh, yeah, no, this game was insane. So the Rangers go up against the Dallas Stars at home. The return of Nils Lundkvist to the Garden. And, yeah, Rangers concede in the second period at the goal by Tyler Seguin, assisted by Marchman and Gurianov. And then it didn't matter what they tried. They just couldn't get the puck in the net for almost 60 minutes because at 59 minutes and 59.2 seconds, K'Andre Miller scored the tying goal 1-1. It is the latest a team has scored ever where the team still got the win in overtime. So that was pretty crazy. It was the fourth time in Rangers history they tied the game in the final second at home. Doug Robinson in 1965, Darren Turcotte in 1992, and Brian Leach in 1998. And only that 1998 game resulted in an overtime win. The other two were ties. So we saw something that doesn't happen very often. But yeah, Miller assisted by Trocheck and Fox with 0.2 or 0.8 seconds to go. And then in overtime, Panarin, Zibanejad, and Fox are on the ice together, and they create some scoring chances, but Fox gets the puck, goes to his backhand, and wins it for the Rangers in OT.
Electric. The Garden was absolutely roaring with this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I was there. It gave you chills. It made me think it was playoff time going on.
I was at the game against the Buffalo Sabres last season at home where Lindgren scored the game winner in the final second of the game. I think this was even more special because you tied the game in the final second with your first goal of the game. You know, like this, the whole Garden was like on their knees begging for this goal to happen. And like if you're tied and you score in the final second, it's nice, but if that puck doesn't go in, you still go to overtime. If that Miller puck doesn't go in, the game's over. So I think that's probably the better experience for people that went to that game. But yeah, what a game. And Adam Fox came through again, and K'Andre Miller kept his streak alive. And then following this, there were 2 other games. He has a 7-game point streak now, by the way, Keandre Miller.
Yeah, he's again. It's crazy because we'll get into the Canadians game in a second. But overall, Keandre Miller has been playing some really, really good hockey, especially with that offensive game. But let's get into what was a dip in defensive production against the Canadians. But before I do, I just want to mention, because there's 2 things that pop in my head right away when you think about Keandre's goal there. One right away is the Brad Richards goal against the Capitals in the playoffs. I mean, absolutely.
I thought you were going to talk about the Richards goal against the Coyotes in the regular season.
No, I was actually thinking Brad Richards in playoffs, because that was in the final dying seconds of that game.
Yeah. 6.6 seconds ago.
Yeah, then Mark Stahl wins it on the power play.
Yeah.
And another goal that I'm reminded of, this was against the Rangers. It may have been in the playoffs as well for the Capitals, and that was it was regular season. That was Joel Ward scoring with like the final second on Hank. I don't remember what year it was or what specific game that was, but if you look it up, Joel Ward scored like a dying second goal to win the game against the Rangers, and it was the most deflating feeling ever. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to give up a tying goal like that, but to give up the game winner, like a buzzer beater. All right. Like if you're shooting that 3 and it just nails as it's already in the dying second. That one was like right to the chest. So I'm talking about a positive moment against the Capitals and a not so positive against the Capitals. No less. Those are the first moments that pop in my head when I think of that Keandre Miller goal for sure. But yeah, let's get into this game against the Canadians, because again, this was just a bummer. You know, you think the Rangers are going to match up against Montreal. They're facing Martin St. Louis. We love Marty. I'm very happy with, you know, his role there in Montreal. But of course, I'm not rooting for the Habs anytime they're facing the Rangers. And, you know, this should have been a game that you thought was going to be easy for the Rangers, but it was anything but. They looked lackadaisical in this one. They got a lot of shots on net, but they got absolutely stonewalled. And this was a story of a game where, you know, Montembeault saving 30 to 39 shots, doing his best, like, prime Carey Price impression out here. You know those games, Steven, we've seen them all the time when the Rangers get at least 35 shots on net, but it's like you just have that terrible feeling they're just not going to fall. They're just not going to go in. Like, you got a hot goaltender you're facing right now out of nowhere, or if they've been hot previously, it's just not going to go your way. I mean, this, like I said, he was on his price shit in this game, which was Montembeault. But no less, Kirby Dach gets the first goal of the game and the second period for Montreal's 8th of the year, assisted by Dvorak and Caulfield on the power play. Then Artemi Panarin ties it up with his 12th of the year, assisted by Hedel and Miller, with 4 minutes or so left there in the second period. Then we get to the third period. One of my favorite players in the AHL since he was drafted, that is not a Ranger, and a guy that I really wish the Rangers picked up at the time, even though I realized it wasn't possible, and Cole Caulfield. Caulfield scored his 26th of the season, assisted by Suzuki and Armia. And the third, just around close to the halfway mark of the third, and the Rangers would not be able to get anything going to really try to muster up a win, or at least take this thing to overtime. So a clunker of a game in this one, but Keandre Miller also did not look good defensively on the game-winning goal there by Caulfield. And that was something where it was kind of uncharacteristic a little bit for Keandre, because we've spoken about Keandre the past couple of years where he's had these streaks of not looking too hot defensively, but then really coming out of it. You know, the second half of last season was a prime example of that too. You know, pretty much as the Rangers started to get hot in the second half, so did Keandre by becoming the Rangers' best defenseman. And while Keandre's been great offensively as of late, that was definitely a defensive miscue and an error on his part, and just didn't look sharp. But he would make up for it and then some, I would say, in the ensuing game after, in which you were in attendance. So take it away. How'd that go?
Yeah, so the game in Columbus, we were there. We were sitting right next to the cannon, which was a pretty cool experience, to be honest. Rangers start off strong, get 2 goals in the first period. Zibanejad from Kakko and Fox. And then the second goal in the first period on the power play, Barclay Goodrow, assisted by Miller and Kakko. So there's Miller again. Kakko with 2 assists in the first period, so great start to the game for him. And Barclay Goodrow, let's call this out, first career power play goal in the NHL.
Isn't that absurd? Like, I get it that Barclay isn't known for being this offensive stud, but out of the times like he has been on special teams for the Rangers too, like that's kind of wild.
Here's another stat for you that might blow your mind. Of the 5 last power play goals, 4 were scored by the second unit for the Rangers.
What is it? Am I seeing the light, Steven? Who would have thought this would ever happen?
And this is still with the normal deployment of the power play units by Gerard Gallant, because he still does not want to give the second unit the start of the power play. He still doesn't want to break up that first unit. He, for as much as he changes the even strength lines, he seems very adamant to stick with whatever he has on the power play. But yeah, 4 of the last 5 power play goals scored by someone on the second unit. So Rangers go into the first intermission up 2-0. Then in the second period, Vitaly Kravtsov gets his 3rd goal of the season, assisted by Filip Chytil and Barclay Goodrow. And then in the 3rd period, the Blue Jackets score, which fired the cannon. That was really cool to experience, like mid-game. Andrew Peak from Nyquist and Roslovic. So game ends in 3-1.
So question, Steven, because I want you to expand more on the game.
Yeah,
I gotta ask, was that probably the only time that you were rooting for the opposing team to score on the Rangers before you left the game?
It's the only time I didn't want my team to get a shutout because I wanted to hear the cannon.
Okay.
But 3-1 is perfect. You know, we win comfortably and they scored a goal, so I got to hear the cannon. Yeah, so it was a good game. It was a fun game to attend to. The area around the arena in Columbus is a bit quiet, but no, it's a nice area. You know, the arena looks like it's an apartment building. It doesn't look like an NHL arena. It blends in with the residential area really nicely. And everything is named after Nationwide. It's Nationwide Arena on Nationwide Boulevard, across the street from the Nationwide Tower and Nationwide headquarters. Everything is Nationwide in Columbus for some reason. But it was a really cool experience. You know, the Blue Jackets fans were a lot of fun. The Rangers in warm-ups, Panarin gave a stick away to a fan, so that was fun to see. Shesterkin gave a puck to a kid, and some random dude stole the puck from the kid, so then Panarin skated over and tossed another puck.
That'll always piss me off. I mean, as a look, it's okay if you're a grown adult and you get pucks thrown at you. Like you and your fiance have experienced that plenty. But it's another when there is clearly a kid standing right.
The kid had a sign in Russian for
literally a sign in Russian that the older schmuck probably had no clue what it said. As like, I'm gonna swoop in, lean over this kid's head. Look, I only have the only pucks I've ever gotten from players were from AHL. They were because I reside not far at all from the Phantoms Arena in Pennsylvania, and I got a puck from Rafi Diaz, believe it or not, back in the day when he was with the Wolfpack, the Swiss captain himself. And when he tossed it to me, and again, I'm 5'4", 5'5", 5'6" in my lifts, and I openly wear lifts. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Okay, so I'm a short guy, right? So I'm standing there at the glass. This is me being a young teenager, and I have 2 towering grown-ass men going out of their way to reach over me to try to grab a puck. And I'm staying there with my brother. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I mean, you could have just waited a second. Rafi seemed like he was being generous. He gave a puck to both me, my brother, and a couple other people. Like, just be patient. I promise you, this is not going to impact your life nearly as much as it'll impact me as someone who's never gotten a puck from a player. Like, stop it.
And a lot of players don't just toss one puck. Like Barclay Goodrow always tosses like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it. There's so many pucks that go over the glass during warm-ups anyway. But no, it was fun to see the interaction between players and fans, and then resulting in a 3-1 win. That just made it even better. And for me personally, man, I needed to see a Rangers win on the road because it's been a while for me. I've seen the Rangers lose 6-2 in St. Louis, 5-2 in Minnesota, 5-1 in Calgary, and 9-3 in Tampa. So
you've been the definition of bad luck on the road.
Yeah, no, I needed a win. No, it was a fun game to watch. Seeing Kakko get 2 assists is nice. And yeah, that second power play unit coming through again, that was big.
Yeah, it was big indeed. And now where you look at where the Rangers stand currently, they're third in the Metro, which is awesome. Again, from how the Rangers started this year, it's crazy to me how the Rangers are, they're what 4 points behind the Devils now for second in the Metro, which is awesome. So they're in a solid spot right now. They're continuing to climb. They've definitely gotten more consistency with their game since we've had plenty of criticisms towards Gerard Gallant in the first couple months of the season, right? And while he hasn't been anything perfect, he definitely has gotten this team more in a groove to our liking as fans than what it was to start the year. So the Rangers right now, third in the Metro. And Steven, I figured let's change things up a little bit if it's okay with you. Let's talk, before I expand a little bit more on individual players' games, let's just take a look quick at the upcoming games now versus instead of waiting till the end of the show. So I feel like our viewers and, audio listeners might enjoy that more because, again, there's a game tonight and it's a big one. And this game, I'm concerned about it, naturally, when you're facing the big bad Bruins. That is tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That was the first of the next 3 or so games that, we'll be discussing, sharing our predictions with before we hopefully record next week. We're eyeing around Thursday as of now, barring any changes per usual. But let's look at the Rangers' schedule. So as I said, they right now are in a spot where they're facing Boston tonight. And just how good have the Boston Bruins been this season, Steven? They have been pretty darn good. What's the record right now?
The record, let me check. The record for the Boston Bruins is 35-5-4.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Boston Bruins are on pace to shatter the win record. I think they're on pace for 64 wins now, if I remember correctly, and they're on pace for more points than the Montreal Canadiens in their record-setting season. Look, the Boston Bruins have a good team. I think what really helped them this year is getting David Krejci back from Czechia.
Yeah.
He went back to Czechia to play there, to be close to his family. He came back to Boston. The guy's 35 points in 39 games, man. He's 36 years old. It looks like he hasn't missed a beat. And then, of course, they got Pavel Zacha, who came over from the Devils. I think he was a free agent. I'm pretty sure he was over as a free agent. But he has
Zacha was a trade for Erik Haula.
Oh, was he traded? Okay. But yeah. Look, 29 points in 44 games for Pavel Zacha. That definitely helps them. Hampus Lindholm, who they signed to an extension after acquiring at the deadline, 29 points in 44 games. So they've made some moves to solidify that team. And, that goalie tandem of Ullmark and Swayman is doing really well for them as well.
Yeah.
It's hard to find holes in that team.
And just what Montgomery has done in his first year, coming back as a head coach. We remember that story with him, start off with Dallas. Then he really had to excuse himself because he had some substance abuse issues going on. But now he's back as a full-time head coach, and he's done nothing short of a phenomenal job with Boston. So you look at this team and they remind you a little bit of, to a similar extent, the Penguins, right? Where they have their core and the Bergerons of the world, now having Krejci back. Pasta, he's younger, so I won't put him in that same class, even though that he's the biggest driving factor for them as due for a massive payday after this season. But they've had that core for a while now, and it's like they're just going to keep kicking and kicking and kicking, and they are. And now they're off to a better season, I think anyone imagined personally. So in this matchup tonight, I got to know, how are you feeling about this game? Along with the next couple games for the Rangers. They got Boston, then the next game after that is Monday the 23rd at home against Florida. And then the last game, hopefully, that the Rangers will play before we talk about them again, will be against Toronto on the 25th. That is going to be next Wednesday. So let me know how you're feeling about these games overall, and then we'll share our predictions for them.
Yeah, look, prior to the season starting, out of those three, I would have said Florida was the best team. They're coming off a President's Trophy winning season. They got better. They basically upgraded from Huberdeau to Matthew Tkachuk, but they're not having the season that a lot of their fans were hoping for. Right now, they're fighting for a wild card spot. Well, they're pretty far behind. There's like 5 or 6 points outside of a wild card spot, even.
Is that the Paul Maurice effect more than the trade?
I think Paul Maurice is a decent coach, but he will never elevate a team.
Because look at how Winnipeg is performing right now.
Yeah.
With what's his name from Dallas? Why am I blanking on their head coach's name?
Shit.
Shit is right. And again, Dallas fans. Yeah, Rick Bowness and Dallas fans had issues with him because he seemed like he was struggling to adjust, but now really hit a new gear with Winnipeg and they're playing well, like really well. So it's interesting how those changes of sceneries make quite the impact.
Yeah. Bowness had this incident with a rookie who was expected to play, and then the rookie flew in all his friends and family for the game, only for him to be a healthy scratch.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that was. No, but look, the Florida Panthers are just not a good team this season. And whatever the reason, they have to get out of the funk they're in. The Boston Bruins worry me more than the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Maple Leafs are a lot of bark with no bite. You know, they're a good team. They can beat you if they score, but they only win when everything goes their way. And if Shesterkin has a good game, then you can take Toronto. I'm more worried about Boston. And, Boston, they made it to 3 Stanley Cup finals with this core you mentioned of Krejci, Marchand, and Bergeron. They were just unlucky that they didn't win more than 1 cup. Mm-hmm.
But to me, they are in the salary cap era. To me, they're on the same level as the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, and yeah, I don't even know why I blanked on Marchand when thinking of Boston, obviously, and they casually had Taylor Hall just sitting there too. Like they definitely have pieces, and
they added Foligno.
Yep, who's been a nice fit for them. It definitely helped balancing things in that bottom 6.
Charlie Coyle.
Yep, he's been a staple there for a couple of years now.
Jake DeBrusk's come alive.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a team that definitely can make some noise. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's game. Florida doesn't really concern me, but I'm still a little bit more hesitant about them than I am about Toronto. I'm just not impressed with the Toronto Maple Leafs, man.
Toronto's getting to a point where they're starting to more of an extent. They remind me of their baseball team a little bit. And hear me out. You have the star power in Austin Matthews, right? And Mitch Marner and William Nylander, Morgan Riley. That's their core 4, right? And those guys are all excellent players. And John Tavares, my goodness gracious, it's easy to forget about Johnny T, right? Like that core 5 is phenomenal. You think about just a couple of years ago, for example, the Toronto Blue Jays had the best offense in baseball. I mean, absolutely phenomenal, led by the likes of Bo Bichette, Marcus Semien when he was there for 1 year. Vladdy Guerrero Jr., George Springer, his first year there. They had Lourdes Gurriel, and I know that you probably don't know all these players, but this leads me to my point. They just an absolutely stacked, locked and loaded offense, like tremendous. And Teoscar Hernandez too. But now they're in a spot where they've traded away Tio. They don't have Semien anymore. And there's uncertainties with Bo Bichette and his future. And it's like you have all this talent, and yet they haven't fully put it together. And the reason why they haven't fully put it together is because they still have had struggles with the back end of their staff, their rotation, and their bullpen. When I think about Toronto, you have those similarities where the offense on consistent level usually isn't too much of an issue, but they're top heavy, and they have their issues with, whether it's parts of the back end of the defense and the consistency at the goaltending. You know what I mean? It's like they're just missing that one or a couple pieces to help take them over the hump. And all this firepower, all the star power for these respective teams, and yet they haven't been able, and it's like annoying to me. Like, I'm not a Toronto fan by any stretch, but it's way, way too frustrating to see teams of any sport where you know that they have this pure talent and they just don't have enough around it.
Yeah.
It's just not enough.
They remind me, a football team that reminds me of the Maple Leafs is this season's Minnesota Vikings. They're 13-3, and their point differential across the season is a -5. Or
Yeah.
13-4 or something. It's all offense, no defense. Like the Broncos that year, they made it to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, and they lost 43-8.
Yep.
You know, they're all offense. Everyone's talking about this and the breaking records and most touchdown passes in a single season and most passing yards and most points, and it didn't end in a championship. And the Maple Leafs are kind of similar. Everyone's talking about Mitch Marner's point streak, and everyone's talking about Mitch Marner's point streak at home, and everyone's talking about Austin Matthews winning the MVP, and no one is ever talking about a defenseman from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Is anyone ever talking about a Maple Leafs defenseman in a positive way?
Yeah, seriously. You're not wrong. So, look, let's look at these 3 games. Let's share our predictions, shall we? I'll start with you. I don't remember who won the belt last time we did these.
It was me.
It was you. Okay, so naturally you start then. That's fine.
All right, so we go for 3 games, right?
Yep.
All right. Last time I went 3-0-0, and we only won 1. So let's not do that again. I'm gonna go 1-1-1.
Oh, 1-1-1.
And I'll go with 10 goals.
Okay. 1-1-1. Let me look at the Rangers' goal scoring lately.
If the second power play unit's on, then it's looking good.
So you're banking on over 3 goals a game. All right. I'm going to go with... shit. I'm going to go with 2-1. I'm going to stay on the optimistic side. And for goals... probably stupid for saying this, but I'll go the over on 11.
Okay.
So hoping that the Rangers score at least like 5 goals in one of these 3 games.
If the Rangers get shut out once, I think I'm good for the tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker. So it's gonna come down to, who has the better record. So we'll see, but it's okay. We'll see what happens there. All right, so we did our predictions for the next 3 games of the Rangers. Again, big game tonight. Hopefully they perform well against the big bad Bruins. But now let's talk. I
want to mention one quick thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you remember those games against the Hurricanes, and who was the other team that we scored a empty netter against? The Hurricanes and the Hurricanes and the Canadiens.
Yeah.
Philip Hedl became only the 3rd player in NHL history to score multiple power play empty net goals in a single season.
Are you serious? That's so random.
And the first ever to do it in back-to-back games.
The first game where he got that empty netter, it was so funny seeing his face because he was genuinely pissed because he didn't play like at all the 3rd because Gallant benched him. So he's like, why do you give me this? Like, I don't deserve this. Like, this is stat padding 101 is what this is. There was no need, but it is what it is. I'll take it.
Power play empty net goals are rare, man.
Speaking of Hedl, let's start with Hedl and then let's get into K'Andre. How has your evaluation been on Philip Hedl so far this season for the Rangers?
Yeah, when he stays healthy, he's good.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that, you've noticed with him is he doesn't look as lost in games now. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like throughout the start of his career, he'd have this ridiculous stretch of like 4 games or so and just look like an elite goal scorer out of nowhere, like doing stupid toe drags, nasty backhands. It's like, okay, like he's almost looking like Malkin out here. Like he's using his body, and it's like, where is this coming from?
Yeah,
and
he reminded me a lot of Artem Anisimov in that way, where Artem Anisimov would have weeks where he would look like Kovalchuk.
Yep,
and he would score the most amazing goals, and then he wouldn't show up for a month.
Yeah, it's funny, but now you see him, especially after that phenomenal playoff with the Rangers last year. He's really taken things to a comfortable height. I mean, he has 24 points in 37 games, So an average of an 82 game season. I can't do math too well, but I'm going to attempt to do my best here. So let's just round it to 40 games. So he's he's still on pace for 50 points in a normal 80 plus game season. Like, that's great to see for Heedle to really take that next jump in his game. He's still so young. And then, talking about Keandre Miller, already on pace for over 40 points this season, 25 thus far in 45 games, including the 5 goals, 20 assists, a 7-point game streak for Keandre. What has been your biggest takeaway of Keandre so far that you've seen?
Well, that he just looks more comfortable, and that goes for a lot of players this season on the Rangers. They don't hold back as much as they did last season. But for Miller, he's no longer being held back by Trouba. And honestly, he plays his best hockey when he's paired with someone else. There are a couple of games where late in the game he was paired with Schneider, and they just look more comfortable together. So I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, I hope for Miller that he doesn't have to play with Trouba for too much longer. They have to try something else with those pairings.
Yeah,
I still hope I get to see a Miller Fox pairing one day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we've talked about that. It feels like at least 2 years now, right?
Let's also not forget Jimmy Vesey signing a 2-year extension.
A lot's happened. Jimmy Vesey signing a 2-year extension. The Rangers brought in. Please make sure I don't pronounce the player's name wrong. And
Decision.
I can't.
Just pronounce it as Decision with an L.
Okay, Decision. Okay, that makes it a lot easier, actually. Thank you.
Jake Decision.
The Rangers have picked him up, so he's gotten a little bit of playing time.
And he was decent. He was decent in Columbus. I was pleasantly surprised by how he played.
Maybe this is going to be like the next Dryden Hunt. That maybe looks good.
Yeah, to begin, and he signed for 2 more. He signed for 2 more years at a low cap hit. So, if they get rid of if they refuse to extend Blais, then
please don't remind me of Sammy Blais.
Yeah, Sammy Blais finally started taking out players. It just sucks that it's his teammates.
Oh my god! Yeah. How long is Go out for? Do we know?
I think it's a concussion, but we don't know because everything is an upper body injury with this organization. I made a joke on Twitter a couple of weeks ago that Ned Stark would be listed day to day with an upper body injury if he was a New York Ranger. This team never shares any details when it comes to injuries. No, you can have your foot amputated and you'll be a game time decision with a lower body injury.
Yeah, they're as transparent as they come. They're very hush hush.
Yeah. So nobody knows, but I think it's a concussion. So yeah, a week, 2 maybe. We'll see.
Talking not only about him, but Ben Harper, we've seen him in there quite a bit. Do you think the Rangers have made the right decision by how they've won about Zach Jones this year? And do you think Zach Jones's future with the Rangers is now becoming more slim by the day?
I think Zach Jones is a viable option to trade at the deadline if you go for a big enough player. But yeah, maybe the Rangers just don't feel comfortable having a player like Zach Jones on a lower pair. And I still wish they would have tried a Lundqvist Schneider pairing. But whether you play Harper or Hayek, there's no real difference between choosing between the two. They're both mediocre at best.
Now, not only talking about everything going on with with Zach Jones. Speaking of young players that we expect a performance out of, but maybe we haven't seen too much, I will say I've really liked what I've seen from Kaapo Kakko quite a bit at times. 20 points in 45 games. Laffy, 18 points in 44 games. Sheltered minutes still for Laffy, right? It varies on the game for him.
Yeah, to me, the big difference is that when Kakko's not scoring, he's still making things happen.
And when Laffy isn't scoring, he's not really doing anything of
pretty much invisible. Yeah,
productivity. If anything, becomes a slight liability by taking a penalty or two. I mean, we just saw that in the last game versus Columbus, in which you were in attendance, for example. So they're both on pace for around 40 points this year, which naturally, when you look at guys that are at the ages of Kakko and Laffy, you say, like, that's not bad. And I agree that isn't bad. But, you know, is it wrong? Like, trying to evaluate more so Laffy than Kakko, because I really don't have a lot of concerns with Kakko right now. I don't. I think that he's really he's finally starting to hit his stride the way that we're seeing it with Heedle. And I think Kakko is going to get to an even further level next year. I think Kakko will be in that 55, 60 point range next season. I really do believe that with how he's performing.
Yeah, and Kakko is also 2.5 years younger than Heedle.
Yep. And that's
a
telling.
year and a half. Sorry, a year and a half younger than Heedle.
So yeah, like Kakko is only 21, which is absurd. Laffy's what, 20?
Just turned 21. Like
just turned 21.
Back in October.
Yeah, crazy. So when you look at Laffy and how Gallant has won about him, you know, from the healthy scratches to having him on the top line, what do you still believe that Laffy will have a potential long-term future with the Rangers? And do you think his development is going to hit strides the way that we hope? I mean, because at this rate, it's not impossible for a player like him, obviously, to still come out and be a really good player. But we have yet to really see him exemplify any of the talent that we saw, which what made him a number 1 overall pick in the first place. I mean, still to this day, his goal scoring is not flashy on average at all. He'll get a snipe here and there, but it's really still those 2-on-1 tap-ins, you know, or just a beautiful cross-crease pass through traffic that he's able to get through. Like, how do you feel about Lafreniere at this point right
now? The talent is there. Everyone knows this. He was a first overall pick for a reason. And he can score goals. I mean, he scored 19 even strength goals last season.
Mm-hmm.
I shared a comparison a couple of weeks ago. After 163 NHL games, Lafreniere's even strength production was higher than Jack Hughes.
Yep.
So the real issue is that he's just not getting power play time. Now, with Kreider out for the last 2 games, he has been getting some more power play time.
True, we didn't even make note of that. That's a fair point.
But it's only 2 games, you know, and that first unit is cold as it can be. But players like Lafreniere, if you want to get something out of them, they have to play power play minutes. They have to get serious power play minutes. And I'm going to look this up. I posted this a couple of weeks ago as well. Not that one. About Kakko's power play time. Let me find it quickly. One sec. Because Kakko's power play time was like 2 minutes, 13 seconds per game in his rookie season. And then the 3 seasons after were all lower. Here it is. First season, 2 minutes, 14 seconds, 13 points on the power play. Second season, 1 minute, 19 seconds, 3 points. Third season, 1 minute, 14 seconds, 2 points. And then his fourth season, 1 minute, 3 seconds. And back then it was 1 point. Now he got a second power play point. So he played over 2 minutes of power play time every game, like on average in his rookie season. And it was just cut in half starting in his second season. And it's gone down ever since. 1 minute 19, 1 minute 14, 1 minute 03. And the same thing is true for Lafreniere. Lafreniere needs power play time. And I'm not saying that they should be on the top unit. I'm saying that sometimes a coach should use his second unit to start a power play, especially when you play at home. And I've explained this many times. If you start at home, you have the last change, right? If you start your second unit, if they put out their first unit, you put out your second unit, you create a mismatch later on on the power play. Because right now, our top power play unit always goes up against their best PKers. Always. But Gallant does not make use of the last change in the NHL. And that frustrates me. He finally started using his timeouts. Because he never did that either.
That's a good point. Yep.
But look, good teams use both power play units. And it's not like the first power play unit is so good that you cannot justify not starting them. I mean, the first power play unit, our power play ranks 15th in the league.
I mean, the Rangers' offense overall is right around just above league average, and power play is around 15th. To your point, yes.
Yeah. It's just not good enough.
No, like right now, for instance, and this is what makes Boston. So Boston and Buffalo at the top. Talk about the Sabres too. My goodness. I mean, with Tage Thompson and all the young kids that they have thriving there, Jeff Skinner's back to his old self. I mean, they have a lot of nice young weapons. Buffalo's been a fun team to watch this year, but Boston, roughly 28% on the power play, and they average a 3.86 goals per game, which is insane. Rangers at 22% on the power play average 3.2 goals per game, which is just themselves included 2 teams above league average. Defensively, if you look at where they rank, if my computer will load quick, it might not. So if it doesn't, then maybe I won't see it. Okay, I guess I'm not going to see it. Are you able to pull up the Rangers defensive rankings right now? Because I'm curious where they stand. Maybe I can do it.
What are you looking for?
Rangers defensive rankings, like in the NHL. I think I got it.
Like in points? Or...
No, just where they rank overall with like defense, from penalty kill to goals allowed per game, stuff like that. So I'm trying to load it, but the website is not pulling up for me on OddsShark. It's okay if it doesn't. No worries. Is Boston number 1 in defense too? My God, they are. That's crazy. They're nuts. That if the Rangers somehow, some way pull out a W tonight at the time recording this too, that'll be even more amplified than like that'll rock the Garden. That really would. But we talked about a lot of the players and what's going on with them and just sharing updates and our analysis on them. Now let's pivot quickly before we get to our last segment, which is on, the latest prospect updates. If you don't mind, Steven, why don't you share your experience briefly on seeing Henrik Lundqvist's number retired now at the Rangers?
Oh, well, it wasn't a number retirement per se, because, and this is where the bureaucracy of the SHL comes in.
Okay.
You can only get your number retired if you played a certain number of years for a team.
Oh, and because he was very limited, obviously.
And because he went to the NHL after 5 seasons, he could not get his number retired. So what they did is a tribute night. So my fiance and I flew to Sweden, spend a week in Gothenburg. It was great. She had never been to Sweden. I've been a couple of times, but it's such a fun experience. Just visiting Sweden as a country, people are so friendly and like a whole different vibe. So we were there for a couple of days. We went to the game. It was a lot of fun. Everything was in Swedish, so it was hard to understand everything. I could make up a couple of sentences, and the people around us would translate stuff for us, which was nice. But yeah, I know it was a really nice gesture by Frölunda for Henrik Lundqvist. They had special warm-up jerseys, and they gave him like a commemorative helmet and a lot of other gifts. And the fact that his twin brother is the captain for the team also was a nice touch.
Yeah, so even though he's how old now?
40. They're 40. They're turning 41 in April.
Wow.
Or March. So yeah, no, it was great. Just to go there, go to a game, and we were lucky enough to that one of the PR managers reached out to us and gave us a puck from the game for our collection. So overall, it was just a huge success, and just being there, experiencing it was fun. And Frölunda lost the game 3-2, just like the Rangers did against Minnesota. So in good fashion, when you have a tribute night for a legend, you lose the game.
Yeah, seriously. Was Zook on the opposing team? I think that's the only question.
No. I have to see if there was a Norwegian on the other team, but no. Adam Edstrom had an assist in the game because they played against Rögle. So for me, it was like there were two reasons to go. It was for a Lundqvist night, of course, but I also got to see Adam Edstrom and Oliver Ternström play in person for the first time. Anthony Greco plays for Frölunda, so seeing him in person again was fun.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I guess the money was just better there, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
no,
he's had a
you
very
could-
good AHL career.
you can probably make twice as much like as you can make in the AHL.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of like tax breaks you get, so like the net pay will be a lot better in Sweden, and it's just like it's a lot more. I would say it's a lot more fun because you don't just sit on buses all day going to Providence, Bridgeport, and Springfield.
Yeah.
If you play for a team like Frölunda, you play in the Champions Hockey League, so you get to fly to countries like the Czech Republic, Switzerland, Finland. You get to play like actual international games. And this upcoming season, Frölunda will play in the Spengler Cup in Switzerland. So and the World Juniors is going to be there. So my fiance and I are planning on going there for the World Juniors. Same city, same arena. That's going to be a whole different experience. No, but it was just a lot of fun. Definitely worth the effort it took to go out there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you guys were able to get that experience. That really sounds awesome. And again, fitting once more they lose 3-2 in that game. That's funny to me. I do see, however, Polynesian, a good supporter here on the channel. Thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. We appreciate that. Thank you kindly for that, my friend. Appreciate you chiming in. For people that are watching the live show and for people watching replay or wherever you get your audio podcast for Rangers Review episode 70, we're happy to have you all in here. But now,
I
Steven,
have a quick quiz question before we move on, by the way.
okay, go ahead.
So last night, Dryden Hunt scored for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up the fact that he's with Toronto now. It'll be interesting to see us match up with him again because he was with the Avs last time we saw him.
Yeah, he has scored for 3 different teams this season: the Rangers, the Avalanche, and the Maple Leafs.
Wow, that's
interesting. Do you know the last 2 players to score for 3 different teams in the same season?
No. Wait. The last Ranger.
No. The last 2 players to score for 3 different teams in a single season.
Can you tell me the year of the last season?
One of them was 2019-2020, and the other one was 2018-2019.
Are either of these players notable?
One was a first overall pick. The other was a former Ranger.
Okay, we're gonna have to break this down. Tell me the 3 teams.
Not even my fiance who's sitting next to me knows the answer to these ones because
I mean, I would hope not. No, a rational person shouldn't know this. What's the 3 teams of one of the players?
So in 2019-2020, the 3 teams were the Montreal Canadiens, the LA Kings, and the Washington Capitals.
Oh God! Wait,
and this is the first overall pick.
Washington Capitals, LA Kings, and who?
And Montreal Canadiens.
Oh,
former first overall pick.
Oh my God. You know, when you said Caps and Canes, I thought Hagelin for a second, but I'm like, no.
No, this is the former first overall pick. This is not the former Ranger we're talking about.
But just because he's a former first overall pick, he's not clearly is not a great player.
But not anymore, but he was.
Oh, he was. So this is towards the end of his career. Mm-hmm. Oh no! Come on. Which team was he on the longest that season?
He was on the Montreal Canadiens the longest.
Oh, goodness gracious. Capitals and the Canes. I got nothing.
Ilya Kovalchuk.
Oh, my God. Oh.
And then the former Ranger was 2018-2019.
And what teams were it?
The teams were the Penguins, the Panthers, and the Avalanche.
Penguins, Panthers, Avalanche. Is this a defenseman?
Nope.
Oh. How was he? Was he like a notable Ranger?
Oh yes,
Penguins, Panthers, Avalanche. Oh, Derek Brassard.
there you go.
Sweet. All right, I got one of the two. I'll
You
take
got
that.
1 out of 2. That's
Yeah.
not bad. That's not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, I'll take that. I remember he was on the Avalanche and the Panthers were like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, the Ilya completely stumped me though. My goodness, I haven't heard that name in a minute now. Is he still playing?
I think he retired. He went back to Russia and he won a championship there, I think.
Yeah,
And
he did. He
I'm
probably
sure he
retired now.
retired for that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll never forget the hype in his return and how he wanted to come to the Rangers, but the Rangers didn't want him. Like they didn't want to go for that price point because I think that they were involved in negotiations for him initially before he signed with the Canes.
Yeah, but yeah, we didn't miss much.
No, we didn't. But okay, let's get into the final segment, which is prospect updates. Steven, you are the prospect guru after all. So, what prospect updates do you got for me?
Well, the World Juniors has come to an end. Rangers finished for the third time ever with a gold, silver, and bronze medalist.
Very cool.
Brennan Othmann with the gold, Yaroslav Chmelaris with the silver, and Noah Laba with the bronze for Team USA. So now they've all gone back to college or juniors or back to Europe, of course. Adam Sikora is not going over to the WHL.
I heard
there was some talk about that initially. By the way, I see there's some glare of the sun behind me, but
no worries. Okay, we're towards the end of the show, anyways.
So Adam Sikora was supposed to go to the WHL. There was talk about him going, and he was going to be traded to the Saskatoon Blades. But the Rangers have decided to keep him in Slovakia, which I'm happy about because I think playing professional hockey is a good thing for a young kid. He's played over 100 professional hockey games in his career so far.
I think he's 18, right?
And he's only 18, yeah. So he's going to finish the season in Slovakia. Nitra and Adam Sikora won the Continental Cup.
Okay.
It's the second tier of continental hockey in Europe, just below the Champions Hockey League. So nice little trophy and a medal there for Adam Sikora. And then back in juniors, Othmann's back with the Peterborough Petes, who have gone all in. They made some big trades. They acquired Owen Beck and Avery Hayes and someone else that I'm blanking on now. But they made some big moves. So they're going to go all in. Othmann has 13 points in 13 games for the Petes. McConnell Barker for the Sioux Greyhounds has 51 points in 41 games.
Wow!
So he's having a really good season, and it's not just the production with him. He's a really solid two-way player, which was always his strength, and the production would come afterward. The production's coming now, so really good to see. And Barbashev in the QMJHL is 39 points in 39 games, so really good season for him as well. I think overall there's been some really positive moments for Ranger prospects in juniors this season, and it's nice to see the Rangers go back to the junior pool after years of just avoiding it. You know, they would always draft players from college or Europe, but now with Othmann and also Grube and Boyko and Schneider, Robertson, and Garant coming out of the WHL and Cooley coming out of the OHL, they feel more comfortable going with players from those leagues, which is fun to see.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fun to see, and that's good. I always love to hear about those prospect updates. And it's funny, as you were explaining all of them to me, for whatever reason, there's one former Ranger prospect that popped in my head, and I want to see if you can figure out who exactly that was. Now, I do believe he's still playing professional hockey. I'd imagine it's overseas. It's not in the U.S. or Canada. He was a somewhat coveted prospect when the Rangers prospect pool was absolutely shit in like the mid 2010s. And he played for, I want to make sure I get the team name. I want to say, I'm almost certain it's this team. I'm just double checking. Yeah, he played for the Calgary Hitmen.
Oh, Adam Tambellini.
Yes, Adam Tambellini. Nice. You're on the money with it.
He plays for Rögle in Sweden. I saw him in the Lundqvist game.
that's funny.
I think he scored that game actually.
Get out.
Yeah, Adam Tambellini. We had 3 third-round picks that year in 2013. We got Buchnevich, Duclair, and Tambellini.
One of them should still be here, but hey.
His dad was a GM in Edmonton, I think. Steve Tambellini.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Yep. So, yeah, Adam Tambellini, yeah, he's having a great year. 34 points in 33 games. He's done really well since going over to Sweden.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his numbers here. All right, good for him. Good for Adam. But I realize we do have one more segment. I know we're an hour in, but we haven't spoken over a month, so who cares? Timo Meier. Briefly touching on Timo Meier, it was originally reported from Frank Cervelli, I believe, that apparently Meier is like at the top of the Rangers like priority list among like trade targets leading up to the trade deadline. Now, Timo Meier, for those that don't know, is on the final year of his contract. Can be given a qualifying offer after the season, but that'll be around $10 million, right? Isn't that correct, Steven?
$1 million. Yeah.
Okay. And his current cap hit is around $6+ million, which the Rangers can afford under the cap. But really comes down to, is this a move that the Rangers would feasibly do to give up the type of prospect capital that they would for a guy that, while would be beyond effective and fantastic for this Rangers team that's in desperate need of a right wing? Again, no, they should have never traded Buchnevich, because basically that same cap hit is Barclay Goodrow and Sammy Blais, just to give people an idea just how stupid that trade still was. But Timo Meier, 46 games this season, 26 goals, 46 points for the 26-year-old right winger with the left-hand shot. Is he a guy that you think is at all a possibility for the Rangers, knowing how much prospect capital, draft picks they would have to give up for a guy that's more than likely not going to resign here? Because I just don't feasibly see how the Rangers can make that deal happen and an extension would be put in place.
Yeah. Well, the sarcastic comment to that would be, it would probably cost Sammy Blais and a second-round pick.
Yeah,
for a player like that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Now, look, to me, it feels like Timo Meier is just the flavor of the month. You know, I said this to you before we started recording. Every couple of weeks, there's a new name that pops up that everyone's talking about on social media. And after a couple of weeks, it just dies down for whatever reason. The player gets injured, the player gets traded to another team, the player signs an extension, whatever it is, the chatter always stops. We talked about Eichel, we talked about Horvat, we talked about Besser, we talked about Miller, we talked about Kane and Tarasenko, and then some people were talking about Gavrikov out of the blue for a couple of weeks, and now it's Timo Meier. So I'm not holding out hope, although he would be a good acquisition. You're probably looking at a first-round pick, a prospect, and then a conditional pick.
Based on how far they go in playoffs, for example?
Maybe, yeah. You cannot do conditions anymore based on re-signing a player, like the Zuccarello trade, for instance.
Yeah.
That's no longer possible. But maybe a conditional second-round pick where it turns into a first if you make it to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, like the Andrew Copp deal. Very similar.
Yeah. But you're talking about the San Jose Sharks here with Mike Greer's GM, Chris Morehouse as their director of scouting, who was a director of scouting in New York. So these are two guys that were in the Rangers organization not too long ago. They know our prospect pool better than most other teams. So I'm pretty sure they will have their targets. What those targets are, I don't know. I don't think Offman's on the table for a rental. Sikora, McConnell, Barker probably aren't either. So you're looking at maybe Cooley or Berard or Chmelars or Robertson or maybe Jones. But the big prospects are never traded for a rental. And Timo Meier will be a rental because the Rangers cannot afford to give him a qualifying offer.
Exactly. If the Rangers make this move, it means they're going all in. You know, the same way that even if they acquired Patrick Kane, there's no guarantee that they would bring him back either. They're doing that because they're just going all in, you know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when we think about last season where the Rangers brought in Kopp, Mott, who you always loved Tyler Mott, right? The one that got away. Yeah, Vetrano and Justin Braun. and the Rangers didn't bring one single player back of those 4. So I commend them. I mean, they did it the best way possible. They gave up so little for all those players combined. That was just brilliance
Yeah.
by Drury. But now you see this Rangers team again, a very solid team, looking so much better than what they were to begin the year, and I commend them for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
However,
the most picks the Rangers gave up in a trade this season is to get rid of Patrick Nemeth.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But you look at how this team is currently constructed. Do you expect them to have the type of run that they had last year? Because I'd be a little remiss. I could and hopefully will be wrong. They have the experience, unlike what they had entering last season. However, they won't, if they don't, I feel like that Drury's going to have a trick up his sleeve and make some beneficial moves. Maybe they will be similar to what they were last trade deadline, where maybe not any names are, really mind-boggling, but just helping to round out that roster and just make this team more deep than what it is now. And again, if they have to be parted with, and so be it. But I feel like that's kind of the type of playbook that Drury would abide by again, right? What's a Andrew Kopp-esque player again for this upcoming trade deadline? I mean, is it warrant? Maybe could the Rangers even consider maybe going after like a Justin Braun or a similar type again defensively? Because I mean, you can definitely upgrade over what they currently have on that bottom pair /7 defenseman.
Yeah, no, it could be. But if you look at the way the team is constructed right now, you look at the players aside from Panarin and Kreider. Most players in our top 9 and on our top defensive pairs are on pace for career years in points. Panarin's on pace for 88. His career high is 96. Zibanejad's on pace for 86. His career high is 81. Fox is on pace for 84. His career high is 74.
Isn't that nuts that Foxy's on pace for over 80 points this year?
Yeah. Trocheck's on pace for 59. Ryan Strome, who he replaced, has a career high of 54.
Yep.
Miller is on pace for 44, career high of 20. Kreider has a drop-off. He had 70 last season. He's projected to go over 58. But then there's kid line. Then there's the kid line. Heedle's on pace for 46, career high 23. Kakko 34, career high 23. Lafreniere 35, career high 32. Goudreau 36, career high 33. So aside from Panarin and Kreider, every skater on this team that you're banking on to win games is on pace to have a career year.
That's a good point. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'm sure Drury will keep in mind when evaluating what's best for them to do by the trade deadline. But very fair point by you. But with that being said, Steven, I think that's about going to wrap up the show. We have one final thing to say, which is that's episode 70 of Rangers Review. So before you potentially look, I don't want you to look. I'm going to ask you this question. It should be I feel like this will be an easy answer for you. It wouldn't have been for me if I didn't look. Honestly, you'd imagine 70. Okay, it's going to be a goaltender, and there's one goal.
Was he born a day after the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in '94?
Is that a rhetorical question?
Because if it is, then it's Mackenzie Skapski.
Yes, yeah, the Buffalo Sabres' father. Is it Mackenzie Skapski?
Did he have 2 games against the Sabres?
I believe so, and he have shutouts in both.
I think he had a shutout in 1.
Yeah, he looked great either way, and then he got dealt with injury, and we haven't heard from him since. I have no clue where he's at in his professional career right now. Kind of like Brandon Halverson, the same thing. He was once a coveted Rangers goaltending prospect, and I haven't heard from him in a while either.
If they ever make a movie about Mackenzie Skapski, then they should have Ed Sheeran play him.
Yeah, right. They're pretty close in looks. You know what? Before we get out of here, let me just look up briefly has Mackenzie Skapski continued his career at all, or is he kaput?
I think he retired a couple of years ago.
His goaltenders are so finicky, like they really can come out of nowhere and then be gone before you know it. Yeah, I think he retired 2018, 2019. He was in the Slovak League. Had good numbers there. Very good numbers, actually. Prior to that, he was in the ECHL for 2 years. Hartford Wolfpack 8. I mean, I cannot believe that he goaltended for the Rangers in 2014, 2015. Holy shit. I can't believe it's been that long ago.
I know. It's 8 years ago.
That's insane. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, great discussion today, Stephen. It was very good to get to catch up with you. And for all of our listeners here for Rangers Review, we appreciate you all. We'll hopefully be back. Like I said, we're eyeing next Thursday. If we do not get to next Thursday, then hopefully not long after that. But until then, we wish you all great time over this next week of Rangers hockey, including a game tonight against the Boston Bruins at the time of recording this. Big game against the Big Bad Bees. We'll see how they do. But Stephen, enjoy the rest of your trip in Florida, and then when you go to Seattle, hopefully we'll be talking next during that time frame. Any final remarks before we get out of here?
No, let's see you next Thursday. Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers, baby. Have a great one, folks. Thanks so much for chiming in.